Welcome. In this explainer, we're going to break down a really important document, Egypt's official game plan for climate action. We'll look at the massive challenges the country is up against, the ambitious strategy it's rolling out, and what the results actually look like so far.
Okay, so let's dive right in with the big question. How does a country of over 105 million people, in a place that's already naturally dry, even start to deal with a global problem like climate change? Well, the answer is laid out in a very detailed plan, and that's exactly what we're going to walk through together.
So the plan is all in this document, the first Biennial Transparency Report. I know, BTR sounds super technical, but it's much simpler than it sounds. You can just think of it as a national report card on climate. It's Egypt showing the world, okay, here's where we stand, here's what we're planning to do, here's how it's going, and by the way, here's the help we're going to need. It's all about being open and transparent.
So before we can even talk about the solutions, we really have to get a handle on just how big the problem is. Let's take a look at the specific climate challenges Egypt is staring down right now.
First up, the Nile Delta. And we're not just talking about a piece of land here. This is the agricultural heart of the country and home to more than 40 million people. The report flags it as one of the most vulnerable places on the entire planet when it comes to rising sea levels. This makes the threat of climate change incredibly personal and very, very real for a huge part of the population.
Now, what's really fascinating about this slide is how it just lays the water crisis bare. Egypt gets a set amount of water from the Nile, about 55.5 billion cubic meters a year. But what the country actually needs is more than double that, over 114 billion. This huge gap is a massive challenge, and you can bet climate change is only making it worse.
And this number, wow, this really highlights the urgency. We're not talking about small shifts in temperature. The report is projecting a rise of anywhere between 2.1 and 5.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century if global emissions stay high. You know what that means? More intense heat waves, more water evaporating, and even more pressure on a water supply that's already stretched to its limit.
Okay, so the challenge is pretty clear, and it's enormous. So let's switch gears and look at the action plan. How exactly is Egypt planning to fight back against these threats? The plan attacks the problem, what experts call climate mitigation, across 5 key parts of the economy: electricity, oil and gas, transport, industry, and tourism. The big takeaway here is that this isn't just a collection of random ideas, it's a coordinated, all-hands-on-deck strategy designed to fundamentally change how the economy runs.
Let's kick things off with electricity, because this is absolutely central to the whole strategy. The goal here is seriously ambitious. Get 42% of all electricity from clean energy by 2030. I mean, that is a huge shift in how the country keeps the lights on for its people and industries. And this isn't just wishful thinking or targets on a spreadsheet. We are talking about massive, real-world projects. Things like the Biennial Solar Park, which is one of the biggest in the world, and huge wind farms like Jebel El Zayt. And maybe most importantly, the plan includes upgrading the entire power grid, so it can actually use all this new clean energy effectively.
All right, next up, transport. The main idea here is something called a modal shift. Sounds a little technical, but it's a simple concept. It's a big, strategic push to get people out of their private cars and onto public transportation. This means pouring money into things like expanding the Cairo Metro, building new electric train lines, and creating super-efficient bus systems.
So that's the plan. It sounds good on paper, for sure. But is it actually working? Let's get into the data and see what's really happening on the ground.
Okay, check out these 2 charts from the report. They cover the oil and gas and transport sectors. The red line shows where emissions were supposed to go if nothing changed. That's the business-as-usual path. But the blue line, that shows what actually happened. And in both cases, you can see the blue line is dipping below the red one. That means the actions they're taking are working. They're successfully bending the emissions curve down, which is exactly what you want to see. Let's zoom in on a specific number. This 57%. This is a big deal. It's the cut in emissions from associated gases in the oil and gas sector they hit by 2022. Their goal for 2030 is 65%, so this shows they are absolutely on the right track.
And here's another key number, this one from the electricity sector. A 34.34% reduction in emissions in 2022 compared to what they expected. This is where you can see the real tangible impact of those huge renewable energy projects we were just talking about. It's making a measurable difference. So the progress is definitely promising, no doubt about it. But to keep this ball rolling and to really get the job done, the report is very upfront that there's still a critical missing piece to the puzzle.
And that missing piece is funding. The report puts a number on it. A total of $246 billion in financial support is needed from the international community to actually pull off all of these climate plans by 2030. That's a staggering number, and it just shows you the sheer scale of this transformation.
This chart shows you where that money would go. The biggest slice of the pie, $196 billion, is for mitigation. Think of that as playing offense, projects that actively cut emissions, like solar and wind farms. The other $50 billion is for adaptation. That's defense. Stuff like building better coastal defenses or developing crops that can handle drought, preparing for the climate impacts that are already unavoidable.
And this quote here from Egypt's Minister of the Environment, Dr. Yasmin Fouad, it really just perfectly sums up the whole report. The plan is there, it's ambitious, but there's a condition. Making this kind of massive change happen isn't something one country can do by itself. It absolutely depends on global cooperation and partnership.
All right, so let's zoom out and pull all of this together. Why does one report from one country actually matter in the grand scheme of things?
Because at the end of the day, this whole plan is about way more than just tons of carbon and emission targets. It's a blueprint for building a stronger, safer future. It's about protecting people in places like the Nile Delta, making sure there's enough food and water, creating new green jobs, and building an economy that's ready for the challenges of a changing world.
So, the report lays out a very clear path for the nation. But it kind of leaves us with one last really important question. What's the role for international partners, for companies, and even for us as individuals in helping to support this green transition? Because, as this report makes crystal clear, this is a journey that, one way or another, involves every single one of us.